open up your Bibles and turn to the book of Revelation, chapter 12. We're going to look at verses 1 through 6. And it reads, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. She, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. There appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. She brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Amen. I'm going to talk to you today from the title, The Woman, the Dragon, and the Child. Again, part 2. The Woman, the Dragon, and the Child. As we started on this last week, I shared with you in this section of chapter 12 through 14, after the 7th trumpet had sounded, and in Revelation chapter 11, verse 15, and then we see with these 7 trumpets introduces the bowl judgments that are coming. They're not introduced until chapter 15. But in the process, what this section of Scripture is, it takes us back and it gives the tribulation, the great tribulation period, from the perspective of Satan. And it goes back and it shows us some things from his perspective, but yet it shows how God in chapters 6 through 11 methodically began to deal with judging the world because of the sins of the world and the rebellion, and then how he is also methodically taking back his title deed to the earth. When we come to chapter 12, again, we're looking at this taking place from Satan's perspective, and we dealt with last week about this great wonder that John saw in the sky. It says in verse 1, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered." As I stated last week, this woman, there are 7 personages in chapters 12 and 13 that are introduced to us that deals with the end, the second half of the tribulation period. And in this, I mentioned that there was a woman, and the woman is Israel. And in the book of Revelation, there are the picture of 4 women that are mentioned in the book of Revelation. In Revelation chapter 2, verse 20, it talks about Jezebel. Jezebel was known in paganism. Alright? And in Revelation chapter 17, verses 1 through 7, it talks about the great harlot. And that's dealing with the apostate church. And then in Romans chapter 19, it deals with the bride of the Lamb. That's dealing with the church, the true church, that's prepared as a bride for Jesus Christ. We see in this particular passage of Scripture where God focuses his attention on Israel. And this woman is not the Virgin Mary, as some like to say, but this woman that we see, it says that there appeared in heaven a great wonder. And I told you that's unique to John. John writes in the book of St. John, the Gospel of John, he uses that word wonder or signs many times in there. And it talks about 7 signs in the book of Revelation. And these are to call attention to. And a sign, it describes a symbol that points to a reality. And so when we see this woman, and I talked to you about Israel Israel last week and how God has set his special mark on Israel and how God protects Israel and how Israel has a unique, exalted status with God. And so therefore God is going to protect Israel. We took a trip back to Genesis chapter 12. And we talked about the fact that God told Abraham, or Abram at the time, he said, of those who bless you, I will bless. And of those who curse you, I will curse. And in you shall all the families of the world be blessed. We talked also last week about the war that took place in heaven. The very first war that was ever recorded took place in heaven. It took place because Satan got beside himself and decided he was going to lift himself up and raise himself up higher than who God was. And he said, I will. He utters 5 I wills, where Isaiah records in Isaiah chapter 14, verses 12 through 14. Told you last week that Satan is very crafty and he's very smooth. And so this war that took place was because Satan has set himself against God, against Jesus Christ, and the people of God. Therefore, he's had an end in hatred, deep hatred for Israel since the garden, when the first prophecy was uttered. So we see here this woman, this great woman, is the nation of Israel. And notice how John describes her. And if you remember anything about the book of Genesis chapter 37, verses 7 through 9, remember the dream that Joseph had? How the sun, the moon, and the stars were bowing down to him, and it's a reference to Jacob, Rachel, and his brothers. And yet this picture here shows that it compares or connects to Israel. And so we see here this woman, notice how she's clothed. She has, with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. This is unique in the sense that the Lord has shown his special care, his special relationship. Israel is exalted with unique status, meaning that God has put his mark to protect her and to keep her. And like I shared with you last week, nothing ever can destroy Israel because God has, again, set his mark on Israel. When you look at the situation, ever since Israel came into being, the Lord said, I didn't choose you, not because you're mighty or all that great. I chose you. Matter of fact, you're small in number. I chose you because I set my love upon you. And he promises to keep them and follow through with everything that he said he would do. And so when you look at her, Israel being clothed with the sun and with the moon under her feet, and then it said a crown of 12 stars, which represents the 12 tribes. And a crown, the crown that's mentioned here with Israel is a Stephanos crown. It's a crown of victory. In other words, God says, I'll fight your battles for you. And think about every battle that Israel, matter of fact, even before they became a heaven army, when God took them out of Egypt, and you remember how he led them with a pillar of fire by night and a pillar of cloud by day? And it got so where they were going through the wilderness, and God was sending them through, and he was conquering. And remember when they got through, went over into the promised land? You remember when he sent the spies over first, and then when the Lord told the people, okay, we want you to go to Jericho. Moses led them to Jericho, and you remember how unique it was when God said, when you get to Jericho, follow these instructions. Yeah. I want you to get the people, and I want you to march around the walls of Jericho for 7 days. 6 days, I want you to march around one time. Yeah. Jericho had gotten so afraid because of the reputation of God's people. Yeah. Whenever God's people would show up, nations would get in trouble. Yeah. And yet Jericho battened down the hatches. Yeah. They closed up everything. And how interesting it would have been to see these Jews, who were not really a warring people, but they had a God who would fight for them, how they would walk around, and God told the children of Israel, He said, don't say a word. Just march around and go back. I said, now they couldn't have been Black Baptists.
That's right.
Because if they were Black Baptists, they would have been talking the whole time. What crazy stuff is God got us doing? God is marching around a wall and not saying nothing. Yeah, we'd all be in trouble. He'd strike us all down on the way there. Because we couldn't believe what he had to say, right? All right. And yet God uniquely brought down the walls of Jericho. And on the seventh day, when they marched around, I can imagine the people of Jericho saying, man, these people are crazy. What's going on? We don't know what they're going to do. And then on the seventh day, they marched around 7 times. And then they shouted out, and then the Lord brought the walls down.
Yeah.
See, God is the one who fights our battles. And God protected them. And so, when you look at that unique status that they had, that the Lord himself, that crown of victory, the Lord gives victory. It's the Lord who fights and wins all battles. You know that, right? I don't care who it is. The Lord is the one that fights and wins the battle. Jesus will. Remember the song, Jesus will? If I keep still, he'll fight my battles. All right? Jesus will do that. He tells us don't even worry about fighting, doesn't he?
Yeah. Amen.
He tells us don't even worry about fighting, doesn't he? I know you all are still sleeping an hour less sleep you got. All right? But that's every week. You get an hour less sleep every week? But the bottom line, when we look here, so we see the unique relationship. We see the woman. The woman is a central figure in this story right here because it shows God's people and those whom God sets his mark on will be victorious no matter what. Matter of fact, the church, we've already won, right? We've already won. Jesus Christ won it for us on the cross, didn't he? And yet we don't fight for victory. We fight because victory's already been won. You know, that's a good thing to know you've already won and you fighting anyhow. It's like a football team going into battle. And then all of a sudden you know you already won, but you just keep on playing anyhow. You keep doing until God is finished with you at that point. So we see this woman, and then it says that she being with child cried, travailing. When you look at this and you see the situation about that, is that Israel from the time of the garden, Satan has set his mark to try to destroy Israel. From the very first prophecy in Genesis 3:15, after the Lord pronounced judgment on mankind, Adam, by the sweat of your brow, you shall toil the earth. It'll be thorns and thistles. You're going to have to work hard to get your food.
Yeah.
Eve, by the fact that you were deceived, you will have pain in childbearing. And then he says, and he turns his attention to the serpent, and he says, and you understand this. He says, now, your seed and the seed of the woman are going to have a battle.
Yeah.
And what the seed of the woman is going to do, you're going to bruise his heel, but he's going to crush your head.
Yeah.
And ever since then, Satan has started to try to wipe out God's people. And sometimes it even got kind of scary then for God's people, but God is never down for the count. Matter of fact, he's never down, period. Because even when old King Saul would try to kill David before David took the throne.
Yeah.
See, that was Satan motivating Saul.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden when David, who joined up and he got the victory over Goliath, Saul then took him in, and then when Saul would go out on missions, he'd take David, and when they come back in, the people would say, the ladies, when they came back in victory, Saul has slain his thousands, and David is 10,000. Well, Saul had an ego.
Yeah.
He had a major ego.
Yeah.
And Saul didn't like the fact that he was king, but yet this little puny boy was getting all the accolades, and people were patting him on his back and giving him props for everything, and yet he's slain his 10,000. I'm the king. Yeah, but you only slain your thousands.
Yeah.
He's got it going on because why? God had chosen himself a king. And remember, whom God puts his hand on, You guys got me on there? When God has his hand on you, victory is mine. I don't have to tell Satan, get thee behind, because victory is already mine because what God has done and putting his hand on me. So all of a sudden, here David is. And Saul, one day when David was playing his music, the Lord sent an evil spirit to cause Saul to have some issues. And David will play the guitar. God put him in the court so he can learn the operations. And David will play strumming his guitar, his bass player over there like Gary. It was soothe old Saul. But then one day David, in 1 Kings chapter 18, David was playing and Saul picked up a spear and threw it at David. And the Lord caused him to get out of the way. See, Satan tries because he knew that if he could kill David, then God couldn't keep his promise. If you've been in Sunday school this morning, you know that God made a covenant with David. And the covenant was that you will always have a descendant on the throne. But yet God didn't let David die. No matter what. Even all the times when David was king and the other nations would come up against him, God preserved him. Why? Because of God's promise of who was going to come from the woman. You know who's going to come from the woman, don't you? Yeah. Oh, if you look at how Israel's history has always been through suffering and through pain and chastisement from God. Even at that, God always remembers his covenant. He never forgets his covenant. He didn't forget it with David, and guess what? One day, we as believers will witness God's covenant. When the Lord himself will come and take the throne in Israel, in Jerusalem, and he'll rule and reign with a rod of iron. Amen. That's God remembering. And so he set his mark on Israel. The woman is protected by God because God knows how to take care of his own. Then he goes on and we see the next individual, the next actor, the next player in this scene that unfolds, and he's introducing them to us because they all have a prominent role in this happening that's going to be. And there appeared another wonder in heaven. Now, the first wonder in verse 1, this great wonder, this impressive, this unusual, this unique wonder that he saw, again, was this woman appearing in heaven, which is Israel. This next wonder in verse 3, and there appeared another wonder in heaven. And this word another is the word allos, another of a different kind. It's not another of the same kind, it's another of a different kind. And notice what the designation is. And he says, and behold, a great red dragon. Okay, first of all, the word great is not the same as great up in the first verse. This word great means it deals with the massive size of this wonder that he witnesses. And notice what he says, a great red dragon. And the term red deals with murder and bloodshed and war. And again, Satan has set himself against God and God's people in order to destroy and wipe them out. But notice this, he's called a dragon, which means his fierceness, his ferocity, which talks about his wickedness, his evil. He's a dragon who has no mercy on any human soul. But he's a dragon that his chief concern is to devour what God has started. Yeah. Oh, if you don't believe me, just look at what happens when you and I stand up to do anything for the Lord. Look at the opposition that comes up whenever you try to do something. Have you ever sat down to study God's Word? Haven't been sleepy all day? And all of a sudden, eyes get heavy, start yawning, and you had 4 cups of coffee. And all of a sudden, have you ever noticed phone has rang all day? And then all of a sudden the phone rings. And then have you ever remembered you didn't remember stuff you were supposed to do? And then all of a sudden your memory gets good. Oh, I forgot to do that. Oh, I forgot to do that. Have you ever wondered? Your kids were nowhere around, but then they show up and have questions for you. This is how Satan wants to block what you do. Don't leave the TV on, because you find yourself looking up, even if the sound is turned down, at the most inopportune time, you see some, I want to see that. Distractions. Satan causes distractions. He causes those distractions that will come and deter us away from what God would have us to do. So when you look at this great red dragon, notice this. This other wonder that appeared in the sky. Behold, a great red dragon. Now notice how he describes him having 7 heads and 10 horns. The 7 heads represent the 7 world empires dating back to Assyria. From Assyria, Babylon. From Babylon, Medo-Persia. From Medo-Persia, the Grecian Empire. From Greece to Rome, and then the revived Roman Empire, which is on its way back. Or I believe we're in the middle of the Roman Empire right now because of the Roman world system. What has America been trying to do the past couple of years? We've been trying to adopt a European style of government. That's what we've been trying to adopt. You guys may not be following that, but you know what? The time is closer than what we think. Because we have lined up in our country to become just like them. Just like the Roman world government system, all right? We've got a one world banking system. You guys know that, right? Huh? You guys know, don't go to sleep on me. I know you're tired. Don't go to sleep. Pay attention. I don't want you to miss this, all right? We've got a one world banking system. We're lining up where we're trying to get a one world government system. We have people talking about, what's wrong with socialism? What's wrong with those things? We have people speaking against the capitalistic. Capitalism has its problems, just like socialism, just like everything else. But we're getting into that mode where we're trying to line up as a world so that the one world ruler can come on the scene. You guys know what I'm saying? All right? And so we have here this guy, Satan, the red dragon, who has energized all of those world empires. Go back to Egypt. Who was controlling Egypt at the time? Pharaoh. You remember that? Then you had the Assyrian Empire. Who was more wicked than the Assyrian Empire? Then you had the Babylonian Empire. Look at Nebuchadnezzar. Look at all that Babylon did. Then the Medo-Persian Empire came along. Then the Grecian Empire. Then the Roman Empire. And now the revival of the Roman Empire is coming back. Satan is at his hand in all of those world empires. And God has let him do something. Because God even controls that situation. He lets him do as much as he allows him to do. But you notice the number 7 speaks of spiritual perfection. The number 7 is from the Hebrew word Shabbat. And it means to be full or satisfied. It means to have enough. The number 7 is perfection and completeness. In other words, when this Roman revival of the Roman Empire returns, God says the end of time is near. I hope you guys are hearing me. Don't be like what Peter says in 2 Peter, like the scoffer said, it's always been going on like this since the beginning of time. They've always been talking about, no, trust me. We're even closer now than we've ever been. If you don't believe me, look at what's happening all over the world. You gotta be blind, deaf, and not looking at things that are happening. It's not like it used to be.
That's right.
You remember when we were younger? People in my age range, plus or minus 10, 15, 20 years. You remember what it used to be like? People who hate to mention their age at this stage in life. It's a blessing to get to this age at this stage in life. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. And you can still walk too. It may be with a limp, but you can still walk. You can still see and hear. You can not jump up from a seated position, but you can reach up and grunt as you get up. But you can still stand upright. All right? Hey! But you remember how it was at one point. I remember when we didn't have to lock our door.
Yeah. Yeah. Go to church.
You try that now. I remember as kids, we could walk from one side of town to the other.
Yeah.
E.O. was telling me last week, we saw his son, and his son was coming back. He runs track, and he was up. Little Thomas was coming back from MLK, and he came by the house, and he said, and Gloria said, "Where you going?" He said, "I'm going home." I said, "You gotta walk all the way over there." I said, "It's not that far." And I told E.O. said, "Sure." He said, "We walk from Reynolds all the way to Converse and back again, and nobody bothered you." But you can't let your kids out of your sight now. It's not like it used to be in July. We live in a different time now. Our young adults and down have grown up in a time when these things are natural to them. And what I mean by that is that this is what they grew up seeing. The reason why it shocks us, because we didn't see stuff like that. We didn't see all that happening that we see on TV nowadays. And when we see it now, we're like, whoa, you see that? And it's astounding to us. And so what we see when we look at this is we see a different day.
Yeah.
That God is saying, be aware of the times in which we live.
Yeah.
Therefore, there needs to be something that really matters to us to keep us grounded to where we don't let things that don't really matter get under our skin. We oftentimes, and that's a trick of the enemy, to get us all worked up over something that doesn't really matter. Focusing on the wrong thing, not putting in us what we need. That's the trick of the enemy. So 7 heads, and then you have 10 horns. The 10 horns, the number 10 is is perfection of divine order. He says the 10 horns represents those 10 kings during the period of the Great Tribulation in Europe, in the European order, where they're going to line up with Satan and the Antichrist. And that's going to be the one world government that's going to be out there. The number 10, and he has horns, and horns represents power, strength. And so when you look at this, it's going to look like an imposing force against what God has planned. All right? But notice what it says. It says in verse 3 also, and 7 crowns upon his head. And the word crowns right there is different from the one in verse 1. The word crowns in verse 1 was Stephanos' crown. It's a laurel wreath. It's a crown of victory. Diadem is this crown that it's talking about. And this term deals with the fact that Satan will have the ability through the Antichrist to rule only in a limited fashion as God gives him the ability. We're going to see all of that unfold in verses 12, 13, and 14. This is just the introduction. Yeah. This is just that which showing that who's all involved here. And then notice this. 10, so he's an imposing figure. A massive, imposing figure. And I was sharing with you, you guys know how real he is, don't you? I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm talking about the enemy. He's very real. Don't his job is to trick you into thinking that he's not real. When I said last week, most people, you know, the depiction that they draw of him in a red suit with horns, a pointed tail, and a pitchfork, don't look nothing like that. That's right. Go to Ezekiel chapter 28. You see the most beautiful creature God ever created. I know some in here like to think they're the most beautiful creature God's ever created. But I got news for you. There's one more beautiful than you are. There's one more smooth and slick. We got some slicksters in here, huh? They grew up one time thinking that they were smoothest, slickest people on the face of the street. All right? But yet I got news for you. He had you duped already because you thought that you were slick and the smoothest and the smartest and the prettiest. And he said, I got you on all fronts. I'm the slickest, smoothest, smartest, prettiest, and you ain't nothing compared to me. That's what Satan can say to him, right? But notice what it says here in verse 4, which is very interesting. And his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth. His tail drew. He influenced angelic beings created in perfection. Didn't have the ability to it was just in a perfect situation, perfect setting, in the pristine glories of heaven, in God's presence. And this individual can go up and persuade a third of them. Now, if you remember back in chapter 9, it talked about the 200,000 or 200 million demons, the locusts, which are demon beings, right? If there are 200 million of those, that means that there are 400 million holy angels, right? But then that doesn't count all the other demons that were already roaming around, other than the ones right out of the bottomless pit. And then all of a sudden, you have 2/3 holy angels to 1/3 demonic beings. And how persuasive can somebody be that can pull you out of the pristine glories of heaven and cause you to leave that in order to rebel against God and be cast to the earth, and then find out that your whole destiny is going to be doomed? That's pretty slick, don't you think? Now, I've got to say this like I said last week. So those of you who think you're so slick, and you're going to tell Satan something, please don't take this wrong. You need to be quiet. Because you're fighting against somebody who knows and has a force. For we wrestle not against what? But against principalities, powers, spiritual wickedness, rulers of darkness, and all of that stuff. And heavenly places. Satan is the god of this world. He's the prince of the power of the air. He's all of that, right? And so, since that's the case, you got to know your enemy. And it says right here, he was able to draw, if he was able to draw a third part of the angels of heaven and did cast them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman. Didn't it say that? And the word stood, I know this is kind of academic right now, but I want you to get this. The word stood is in the perfect tense in the Greek grammar. In the perfect tense, it looks at an event or a process that took place in the past and has existing results with no sight to its completion. So in other words, when Satan was cast out, that's when it began back then. And it's still going on to this day. I asked you all last week to read about Israel. Whatever you saw about Israel in the paper, I told you I looked at on the news, and you saw that Benjamin Netanyahu came to America, and he was in the White House, and all of that, and God is orchestrating everything to his coming in. God knows what he's doing. There's talk that Benjamin Netanyahu may not be reelected in Israel. Well, that concerns me. Because who knows, the next individual may be the individual that makes a treaty with the Antichrist. Every time we have a change in world governments, it lets me know that things are changing. So let's not be ostriches and put our heads in the sand. Let's look at what's going on and let it draw us closer to who God is. Because that's going to be our strength, and that's what's going to help us. And so he stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Oh, we know about that, don't we? You remember what happened when Jesus was born? We got through singing the Christmas songs. Didn't we sing a few months ago? Didn't we look at all the Christmas? We get all happy about the pageantry. We get all happy about the season. People say, oh, I love the Christmas season. Oh, yeah, it's so wonderful. Oh, I just get in the Christmas spirit. Oh, I like the Christmas caroling. I like all that. I like the eggnog and the smells of Christmas. That's in America. That's not everywhere else. You know, when you walk into the store, you smell it. In Home Depot, you smell them pine cones they got smelling like whatever. It gets you in the mood, doesn't it? The mood for Christmas, right? And yet, when Christ was born, that was the most wretched time around on earth.
Yeah.
There was a lot of ugliness to Christmas. You guys know that, right? There was a lot of ugliness that God sent forth His Son into the world to be born of a woman. And Satan even tried to stop all that. But he couldn't do it, all right? I'm building up to something. You guys just hang with me, all right? So he stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered for to devour her child. Remember Herod?
Yeah.
When the wise men came.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Herod showed up? When the wise men showed up? And they came to see the one who was born King of the Jews.
Yeah.
His ego got in the way.
Yeah.
He lied and said, now tell me about what time and where. Where is he? And they said, well, we know that he was to be born in Bethlehem of Judea, and this was going to happen. And Herod said, now go do me a favor. I want to see this guy too.
Yeah.
You go and tell me, come back and tell me where it is, right?
Yeah.
Here's how the Lord protects His own. He sent the angel to tell Joseph, get up, go to Egypt, and get away.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you when to come back, right?
Yeah.
They went, Herod had a slaughter of all Jewish male children, 2 years old and under. But God protected the Savior. Why did He protect the Savior? Because He remembered His covenant, not only to David, but to all mankind. He said to Abraham, He said, for in you shall all the families of the world be blessed.
Yeah.
God knows how to protect His own. God knows what to do. God knows how to keep. God knows how to watch over. God knows how to shield. God knows how to cover. God knows how to get you and me to where we need to be at the right time. Because God never fails. Oh, He never fails. Oh, when you look at verse 5, it gives Jesus' life encapsulated. First of all, what it says is that he was brought forth a man-child. She brought forth a man-child. That's His incarnation.
Yes.
That's when Jesus came into the world to redeem lost sinners like all of us, right?
Yeah.
Then it kind of puts it out of place. And then it talks about His ruling and reigning. It says that He will rule all nations with a rod of iron. That talks about His millennial reign.
Yeah.
When He comes back and sets up His throne, where He'll rule on the scene. Then it says, and He was caught up to heaven.
Yeah.
It's kind of the last two effects, because when He was here, His victory was His ascension back to the Father.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I mean by that. We always talk about the death, burial, and the resurrection. But very seldom do we talk about His ascension to be with the Father.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why that's important. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3, saying, He being the brightness of His glory, the express image of His person, when He who upholds all things by the word of His power, when He had by Himself purged our sins, sat down at the right hand of the Majesty on high. In other words, on the Mount of Olives, when Jesus took His boys out to give them some last-minute instructions, you remember what happened, don't you? They began to ask, when are you going to restore the way, the kingdom, and the way things work? Jesus said, it's not for you to know the times or the seasons. But I want you to understand something. You're going to receive power. After that, the Holy Ghost has come upon you. And I got something for you to do. You're going to be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. He was giving them those instructions, letting them know that there's a period coming that the Old Testament saints did not know. It's the mystery from the Old Testament. It's that period where Daniel was wondering what's going on here. It's the period where we are right now called the church age.
All right.
And in the church age,
All right.
there's going to be a great coming to glory.
Yeah.
There's going to be a bunch of people who come to know who I am.
Yeah.
There's going to be people who are lost in sin, who are going to know and come out of sin because they're going to believe in me. Now, all of a sudden when he was telling them these things, he began to ascend up from the ground. They were so mesmerized that they were just looking at him. And I would think somebody said, whoa, where's he going? What's he doing? But they watched him ascend, and here come two angels. The Lord dispatched two angels, and they were still like this.
Yeah. Wow.
They were in awe, mesmerized. And then the two angels came and got their attention. Said, ye men of Israel, why stand ye here, gazing up into the sky? This same Jesus, in likeness in which he was taken up, so shall come again at that time. So then they went on and they got busy with what God gave them to do. And check this out. But then they went on and then they were totally different people. If you remember. What started. And we ought to thank God for how it started. Because that started and it led to us. And here we sit right now at 420 68th Street. Here we sit right now. Came to know who Jesus is. But he doesn't stop right here. Here's what he says. Here's God's amazing ability to protect his own. It says that the Lord has prepared a place for the woman. And the woman is Israel. That he's going to hide them. God has this unique ability, again, to make us invisible to trouble that comes against us. You guys don't hear what I'm saying?
Go ahead, I hear you.
I think the old timers used to say it like this. He protected us from danger seen and unseen. Everything's going on all around us right now that we can't see. And God's ability to protect us is amazing that he has that ability. Oh, I can't help but talk about how some of you will talk about places you used to go, knowing that those were the worst places to be. Could not care at the time how bad it was. But God had a plan for you. And the plan was, I'm going to save those individuals. I'm going to call my darkness into my marvelous light. So I'm going to protect them. I'm going to put a hedge around them. I'm going to put a fence around them. I'm going to put a shield around them. And they're going to come out of that, even in the stupor that they're in. God has an ability to keep you and I until he's finished with us. In the process, and some of you have even told me since you've been saved, you've been through some places where angels dare not tread. And God, in his own way, in own ability, dispatches angels to encamp around you and I and keep us from messing up. Keep us from getting hurt. Keep us from getting in trouble. Oh, have you ever ventured out and did some things you should not have been doing? Don't get all holy on me right now. I can speak for everybody right here. Don't try to look all pure right now. We all know. I asked a few weeks ago, have you ever thrown caution to the wind? Nobody wanted to answer that question. And then I have the answer for you. I know human nature. And yes, you have. Unless you've been in a coma for the past 50 years. You've thrown caution to the wind. And God has somehow, some way, protected us, kept us, watched over us, took us out of the trouble, and forgave us. What a mighty God we serve. little step I take.
Yeah.
Bobby Brown didn't start that song. He didn't write that song. Oh, I don't care what he said. Every little step I take, he will be here, watching over me. Because you know why? He promised me. He said, after I became a disciple, he said, teaching them to observe. And I've been learning what he's told me to observe. All things whatsoever I have commanded you. And then he said, and lo, I'll be with you always, even to the end of the world. So from the time that the Lord saved me, he's kept his promise for me. There was another time where it says in Psalm 27, he says, for in the time of trouble, he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me up upon a rock. Let me tell you, he protects me even when war is going on all around me. Let me tell you another place. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. The psalmist said, therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar, and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. There is a river where the stream shall make glad, the city of God, the holy places of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathens raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Come, behold the works of the Lord. What desolations he has made in the earth. He maketh wars to cease unto the ends of the earth. He breaketh the bow and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariots in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the people. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. You don't mind if I get happy, do you? Oh, that the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. For he hath founded it upon the seas and established it upon the flood. Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord? Or who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul into vanity nor sworn deceitfully. He shall receive a blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. This is the generation of them that seek thy face, O Jacob. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lifted up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lifted up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. Oh, can I say one more if you don't mind? Now I will lift up my eyes unto the hills. From whence cometh my help? My help cometh from the Lord. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. Behold, he that keepeth thee will not. Come on now. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forward, even forevermore. Oh, let me keep going if you don't mind. You got somewhere to go. Hast thou not known? Hast thou not heard that the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, fainteth not, neither gets weary? He giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might, he increaseth strength. Even the youth shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not get weary. And they shall walk and not faint. Oh yeah! Let me tell you how good God is. Let me tell you how great he is. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still water. He restored my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemy. Thou anointest my big head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I'll dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I'll dwell in the sun-kissed region of an uncloudy day. I'll dwell where the wicked have ceased from trouble, and the weary shall be at rest. I'll dwell where all the saints of the ages gonna sit at his feet and be blessed. Will you celebrate God with me? And tell me how amazing he is. He's worthy of all praise. He's worthy of all honor. He's worthy of all glory. He's worthy of all of our best. Because he saved me. He kept me. He never left me. And he's all right with me.